signal knocked out. Are we live, folks? Are we up? Okay, looks like we're back. Okay, so it's Monday, August 21st, 2023. This is your host, Joe Imbriano, the Fullerton Informer. Contact information is PO Box 4121, Fullerton, California 92834. And on the web, of course, at thefullertoninformer.com. WiFiDangers.com, VaxDangers.com, CellTowerDangers.com. And on it goes, folks, right? Okay, I want to talk to you about Hurricane Hillary. All right? There was a weather system that they called a hurricane that was all over the news if you watched it. And this system originated down off of Cabo San Lucas, which is the southernmost tip of the lower part of the western section of Mexico. Okay. Now, they played this thing like it was this major disaster coming into California. That, you know, they are showing all these pictures of all this torrential rainfall and flooding and danger that we faced, right? The barometric pressure steadily dropped as this thing approached, and it got down, I think, probably to 29.45, 29.43 inches of mercury, which is pretty low for Southern California and is indicative of rainfall, but nowhere near what a hurricane should be. And it wasn't a hurricane by the time it got to where we are. But I want to talk to you about this storm. This is very important that you understand this. That weather system had no business heading north into Southern California based on a variety of meteorological premises, folks. You see, hurricanes don't follow a trajectory into cold water unless they're being guided. The water temperature off of Cabo San Lucas was in the 80s, and as it moved north, there's a section of Baja California where this thing literally fell apart. And I've been there, I've fished there. It's in San Quintin. Some great fishing off of San Quintin, where 10, 12-pound bonita are common. The accommodations at the old mill many years ago. I've spent a good number of fishing trips out of San Quintin. That's on the western side of Baja California, about halfway down. And it's the part that protrudes out into the Pacific. But this is where the hurricane ended, and it really fell apart. Because why? The water went from 80-something degrees down to 64 degrees immediately. And so, what happened? Well, this thing kept going north. The storm kept tracking north into cold water. And it kept moving up into Southern California, where the sea surface temperatures were in the mid-60s. This doesn't make any sense. You don't have hurricanes that follow a trajectory of cool water. Hurricanes follow a trajectory and are fueled by warm water. Why? Because that's what keeps them going. Now, Another thing that was absolutely ridiculous about this weather event was that there was not one flash of lightning, there was not one iota of thunder, there were no squall activity downpours, and yet this massive plume of moisture, this massive storm system as it was called, that had the energy to circulate and travel, produced no lightning and no thunderstorms. This massive storm system, if you will, produced absolutely no swell to speak of on the west-facing beaches or the south-facing beaches. As a matter of fact, the maximum swell size predicted was about 4 to 6 feet. How does a massive so-called hurricane head north into a trajectory of cold water, not yield any thunderstorms or any lightning, and produce absolutely minimal amounts of swell in the ocean? Are you ready for me to tell you now? Because this storm was created and controlled, ladies and gentlemen. This storm was created and controlled, damas y caballeros. This storm was designed and created and controlled to push the climate change agenda. Now, there's a lot of discussion out there about what happened to this storm. But I'm going to tell you right now, that storm fell apart right over San Quintin, where the water went from 80-something degrees to 60-something degrees immediately. And this storm performed exactly how a hurricane should perform up until that point. And you can see the eye of the hurricane literally disintegrated as soon as it got over the cooler water. And I'm talking 15 to 20 degrees cooler water. That's enough to take the punch right out of the storm, and it did. But the point is the thing kept heading towards Los Angeles, and then it veers off towards Las Vegas. But not until there was an earthquake swarm up in Ojai, which is, just to the north of Los Angeles. A 5.1 earthquake took place as this thing was being guided into our area. Why? Because I believe it took a tremendous amount of energy from their advanced types of weather modification systems, which involve scalar weaponry, microwave weaponry, all kinds of resonant frequency weaponry. They got all kinds of stuff that they use to move storms around, that they use to make a cyclonic type of a weather system continue its rotation. It takes a lot of energy to maintain a trajectory of a hurricane into cold water, and they guided that thing all the way up to the southwest basin of Orange County and Los Angeles County, California. That's right, folks. This so-called hurricane continued its trajectory in spite of the fact that it ended up on top of cold water. It should have just petered out and fell apart, but instead it continued moving. Now, in weather events that involve barometric pressure readings down in the 29.4, 29.5, 29.6 inches of mercury, you're generally almost guaranteed to have a thunderstorm. As a matter of fact, I don't know, many years ago, I know that when we had barometric pressure readings to that, to drop that much, normally the barometer's 29.90. When we have a marine layer, it's 29.86. when we have a cutoff low, 29.75. 29.90 is when the marine layer burns off. 30 inches of mercury is what it is when it's clear. 30.1 inches of mercury is when we're getting a Santa Ana. But when we're down into the 29.4, 29.5, 29.6 inches of mercury in Southern California, you're going to get rain, and you're going to get thunder, and you're going to get lightning. And guess what? We got that barometric pressure, and we got no thunder and no lightning and hardly any rain. I got about 1.5 inches of water in my swimming pool out of this thing. They were telling us not to leave our homes. They were telling people to go out and stock up on food. They were telling people to go out and panic buy toilet paper, for crying out loud. And people were freaking out. This weather system delivered the normal amount of rain associated with a normal minor weather system in February or March. It had the typical wind direction, whipping up out of the southeast. But what was notably absent from this system was thunder, lightning, and precipitation. Oh, it had wind. There were gusts. Some of the wind gusts up to 35 miles an hour. But by and large, it was dead calm and light rain for hours. And that is not possible or normal with barometric pressure readings that low, with that kind of a moisture field, with that kind of energy coming up all the way from Mexico, unless it is being guided not on its own accord, but by an external force. Because these weather systems have their own energy that moves them, and that energy is released in the thunder and the lightning, and none of that energy was released. As a matter of fact, we had a lot of wind and very little rain. And this is very common when you have the weather modification involved in moving storms through. Now, as this hurricane was approaching on Saturday, late Saturday afternoon and early evening, the sky was literally covered with chemtrails, this feathery white dusting at very high altitude, in expectation and in advance of the approaching system. They were getting ready to pull the thing up and to run the news channels to freak everybody out, to tell everybody how climate change is causing all these problems, like, how Lahaina was burned up with directed energy weapons and the explosions of the appliances intentionally, and yet they blame climate change for the fires over there, right? Surgical burn patterns, all kinds of telltale signs that an act of war was created in Hawaii on those people, where the police department had ordered the cars to stop so they got burned alive in their cars. But, that's climate change, folks. And when they guide one of these phony baloney hurricanes into southwestern California, up over mid-60-degree water temperatures, and then it gets here with a barometric pressure reading of 29.4, 29.5, and we don't get any thunder or lightning and hardly any rain. What is this, some sort of a wax dummy? Is this some sort of dog toy? Is this some sort of fake weather event? Of course it is. It's a contrived and controlled climate change promoting event. Now, the people that work for the network news, the so-called meteorologists, they're part of it, folks. I mean, when they put out this information, and freak everybody out, and then they show pictures of, Miami and what it looks like in Miami when the hurricane makes landfall in Miami. I mean, that's what their job is to freak everybody out, okay? And it works, because everybody went out and stripped all the water off the shelves in the store, and the toilet paper and the eggs. And for what? It was a non-event. My wife and I were talking about, she's saying, Dad, this isn't going to be anything big. And, she knew. She knows what they're doing. She knows they're just hyping everything up for a reason. When I sat in my house and I went to, let me see, 1, 2, 3, 4, I have 6 different barometers, and I made sure that they were all calibrated correctly Friday night. And I have an electronic one as well that, to be honest with you, is less accurate than the old school ones. And I watched the barometric pressure fall and fall and fall until it hit the point. The lowest reading I got, I think, was 29.43. And as soon as it hit that point, my wife's phone started going off with the emergency alert network sound. And then the wind started. Because they know. But what they don't tell us is they know because they made it happen. This whole carbon dioxide fraud of, how it's killing they call it global warming. Well, number one, we're not living on a globe, folks. And if you haven't figured out the fact that the earth is as flat as a pancake, the reason why, one of the big reasons why they make you believe the earth is some spinning ball, aside from, how they're conning everybody into not believing in God by making it seem like this explosion of rocks and junk and dust coalesced and formed these complex amino acids and life forms, so they can hide God and make us believe that we're animals, so they can treat us like animals, so that we'll be afraid to die. But, they're hiding all these land masses that are out in areas that they don't allow us to go to, okay? The year they started NASA was the year they signed the Antarctic Treaty, and, you can't go down there. You can only go into one little, polar bear candy cane shop, where everybody gets to go, and that's supposedly, Antarctica. Folks, there are just as many continents out there that you and I don't know about than we do know about. There's as much land mass, I believe, given the information from ancient civilizations. There's all kinds of other continents that they're hiding from us. And they pack us into these mega regions and these stack and pack housing, and they put chemicals in the water, and they force us to get ejected, and they put stuff in our food, and they weaponize the light bulbs, they put in all these microwave and millimeter wave transmitters everywhere and cell towers everywhere. Meantime, they got you believing that water stays on a spinning ball, so you have no clue about how many Epstein Islands the size of North America exist out there that you'll never get to or go to, because the cruise ship only goes 80 miles out or 50 miles out, and the airplanes can only go so far because they're not allowed to go past a certain point, or they'll get shot down by any number of 50 countries' military, because they're hiding the land masses. Well, that's a big lie, just like the fact that, plant food, carbon dioxide, supposedly changing the weather. What's changing the weather is the technology, folks. The weaponry, the microwave transmitters on the ground, these scalar weapons they've got hidden in buildings, these massive buildings, these resonant frequency weapons, they got hidden all over the place. Ladies and gentlemen, they own the weather. They've owned it for decades, and they want you to believe that, cooking your bacon on a gas stove or getting in a car and taking a road trip with your wife and Johnny and Junior are destroying the world. That's a lie. It's about control. It's about taking away your ability to travel. Now they're doing soil off-gassing testing. They're testing to see if the natural decomposition of organic matter in the soil, the one that makes the plants grow, the fertilizer, the nitrogen fixation that releases methane and all these things that take place in the soil when organic matter is, reconstituted and recycled by the beneficial microorganisms in the soil. They're trying to go after farms for off-gassing of greenhouse gases. Folks, they're going to shut down food growing. They want to shut down your ability to have a wood stove in the snow and light a fire and heat your home and use natural gas and petroleum, which is a renewable resource that the earth continuously produces through an abiotic process. Nothing to do with dead plants or animals. Now they want you to think that the weather's so out of control that we need to have drastic action to take the weather back to normal. Folks, the only way to take the weather back to normal is to take these people out of power that are controlling the weather. And the first way to do that is to wake people up to the fact that these people actually are controlling the weather. Problem is, most people don't understand the weather enough to realize it is controlled. When I look around and when I see what the sky looks like, and the reason I know what the sky should look like is because I spent an inordinate amount of time outside as a child, and I still do as a grown adult. And whether it's from flying kites that I used to make, that my father taught me how to make as a child on a fishing pole with 200 or 300 yards of monofilament line, what a blast that was, and putting a kite tail on that thing, 200 feet long, because I'd go to the liquor store trash can and get the cash register tape together, and I'd fly a kite with a tail sometimes at 200 feet on it. It was amazing on a fishing pole. Those are the kind of things I did, and I did those with my children, and I spent plenty of time looking up at the sky, day and night. And let me tell you, what they're showing us is not what the sky is supposed to look like. What they're doing to the sky is not natural, it's not normal, okay? They've changed the weather because they want to change how you live, the rights that you have. They want to change the things you have access to. They don't want you to have portable, storable energy like gasoline, like propane, like methane, like butane, like diesel, like biodiesel, like wood, like coal, like charcoal. They don't want us having energy. They want us having electrical stuff that they can shut off and use to kill us, like they did in Lahaina. There are reports of people, they weren't able to get out of their cars because their door locks wouldn't open and the cars shut off. Folks, you don't want to be driving around in some sort of trap that they can shut off and lock you inside of in the middle of the Mojave Desert when it's 120 degrees. Or worse, if you're on the way to Billings, Montana in January and it's 25 below with wind chill, you don't want to get your car shut off and you locked inside the thing as you freeze to death on the side of the road. That's where this is heading, ladies and gentlemen. Climate change is a hoax, folks. Climate change is a lie in terms of this narrative that is associated with it. The weather's changing, and it has nothing to do with you and I. It has everything to do with them. And they want to take you out of your cars, and they want to put you into an electronic social credit score, China communist style society where you can't grow food, you can't transact business, you can't travel, you can't do anything unless your little electronic thingamajigger says you can. If you want to keep believing the news and the propaganda that the deniers of Jesus Christ have mastered and shoved down your throat, then you deserve everything that's coming. If you can't see a problem with what has happened to our society, to what is being done to our children, to what is being done to common sense, decency, and journalism and education and politics and religion and just overall human decency by the deniers of Jesus Christ and their agenda to murder and torture and enslave the human cattle, then you deserve everything that is coming to you. And I am not making that statement lightly, because the amount of cognitive dissonance required to blindly ignore everything that is happening is almost equatable, if not vastly exceeding, a mental illness disease. You've got to be sick in the head if you can't see what's happening. Ladies and gentlemen, everything you have been taught is a lie. Everything you've been told is a lie. When they lie about what you're standing on and the shape of what you're standing on is, that should tell you something. I mean, everybody 150 years ago knew that the earth was as flat as a pancake. That's why they call it sea level. That's why everything, all the engineering and architecture never had any curvature engineered into anything. Folks, come on. I mean, they got this railroad, I think it's in South America. It's like, I don't know, almost 2,000 miles long, and there's no curvature engineered into that thing. Then there's this news coverage of, I think it was in Chicago. They were able to take a picture of the Chicago skyline from such a great distance, and it was a really super clear day. And then the newscaster saying it was a mirage, right? That's how they deal with the truth. They just call it a lie, right? Folks, if they're going to lie to you about what you're standing on, and if they're going to lie about how you got here and why you're here, if they're going to lie to you about the kinds of things you should feed your children and the things that you teach your children, and if they're going to lie to you about the things they want you to put in your bloodstream and the things they want you to put on your nightstand and on the ceiling in your house and breathe, and the air conditioning and the heating systems and the light bulbs. Folks, do you not realize what's going on here? Do you not realize this is a takedown? I mean, if they're now admitting that there's a massive ocean under the land that's greater than the surface water. Did you hear what I just said? They've actually admitted that the primary water lies beneath the land, and that's why they're telling us that there's this massive amount of water underneath the land that's greater than the amount of water on the surface. So they're saying there are these underground vast oceans that are greater than the water mass on the surface. Now, if we're on a spinning ball, how does the water stay on it in the first place? And if the land is floating on, underground oceans, how is the land not falling off when this thing turns? I mean, folks, what they've done, I mean, you might as well stick your fingers in a toaster and take it into the bathtub with you and plug it in. Okay? I'm not kidding. Unbelievable. Wake up to the lies, folks, and get ready to draw your line in the sand and get ready to say no to all the illegal, immoral, and criminal stuff that they got planned to do to you and your children and your loved ones. And if you think you got a few bucks in the bank, and if you think you got some pension, if you think that you're set with your job, if you think that you're set with whatever you got, you ain't set for nothing but slaughter. You need to get right with Jesus Christ, get out of your sinful lifestyle, and get cleaned up so you can see straight, think straight, sleep at night, and fight and tell the truth. And get your integrity back while you have the chance. And don't let the deniers of Jesus Christ immerse you in a jacuzzi of filth and lies as you sit in front of a satanic black scrying mirror, psychotronic electronic Ouija board called a Hellivision, controlled by the deniers of Jesus Christ, who force feed the window to your soul abject filth and lies 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And you know what? You let them. All right. In Jesus' name we go. The truth shall march on. And if you want to continue to live in ignorance, it's only a result of your cowardice. And in Revelation 21:8, it talks about who's first in line for the lake of fire, ladies and gentlemen. And I got news for you. It's the cowards. Get the likes up on this, folks. They immediately cut the stream initially, so the notifications went out to a dead link. They do all kinds of things to this channel. Everything about the truth is always going to be suppressed, but we have to continue to shine the light in the darkness and tell the truth in the midst of the lies, because in a time of universal deceit, telling the truth is a revolutionary act. And folks, we only get one chance at this life, and we have to do it all for the glory of God and for the benefit of our fellow brothers and sisters, in Jesus' name. Take care, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for tuning in. This has been another broadcast of Joe Imbriano, the Fullerton Informer. God bless.